alarm! To arms! They are here!
Good evening, and welcome to the Watchmen's Report. I'm Cody Higley, and tonight we're joined as always by Jason Foreman. And we actually have two special guests tonight, so don't get overloaded. We don't need sensory overload tonight amongst the audience of the Watchmen's Report, but we have Republican 3rd Ward Councilman Ralph Smith, and we're also joined by Republican candidate for the State Representative District 86, Wezlynn Davis. So Ralph, Wezlynn, welcome back to the Watchmen's Report.
Hi, gentlemen. Good evening, Marion. Glad to be back. Always nice to see you all.
Thank you. Thanks for having me back again. I appreciate it.
Glad to have you both. And it's going to be kind of a mixture, a little bit of topics tonight, since we have a candidate for the state level race. And then we also have Mr. Smith here, so we can talk in depth about what's going on, some of the hot topics in the city of Marion, and probably more of a focus on that issue for the evening. And we'll see what Mrs. Davis says, that she thinks that maybe a state rep might be able to assist in those issues. And I think that it's important that you have that type of collaboration to whatever extent is possible. We want our politicians at the various levels working together, and you have to take a regional approach. So if it's a county-wide issue, having the commissioners working with the city of Marion elected officials, and vice versa. But then with like a state rep, you've got the 86th district that covers all of Union County and a portion of Marion County, including the city of Marion. So if there's anything that can be done at the state level, you want to have somebody that represents your district that is advocating to the best of his or her ability for the different municipalities located within the district. Is that something that you would agree with, Wezlynn? I mean, is it important in your mind to have a state rep that is going around and assisting in any way possible with the different municipalities in their district?
I think it's critical, and not to be someone that takes the role or takes on the workload of the elected that are there to serve and represent the people that put them in office, but to bring resources and support, to talk through issues, to understand where we need to not repeat history and how we can correct problems at hand, what can be done at the state level to unshackle or unhandcuff the municipalities, to allow them to do their job well if that's a problem. But I intend to be an active partner, not someone that spends all my time down in Columbus, but being in the district with Ralph and Twyla and Mary and Sean and Pam, and I mean Thaddeus and Aaron, I mean all of them, and really work through these issues, and our township officials as well. I'm a former township trustee, just finished my term, and a lot of time, Ralph, and tell me what you think about this. A lot of times in government, what we see is the higher up, more centralized government sometimes wants to strong arm the lower government, right? Or one entity wants more control over another. That's what we don't want. What we want is for the county to respect the city's role and help them the best way they can, have the state respect the city and the township's role and help, bring tools and resources and autonomy into the situation the best that the state can. And my goal is to ensure that government isn't centralized, that we are empowering our elected to do what they need to do well so that they can be swift and nimble and without bureaucracy.
And I agree with that, Wezlynn. I think, each entity should have its own way of operating. And the thing that I would emphasize, no matter if it's the city of Marion, the county of Marion, the state of Ohio, or the United States of America, the most powerful person in government is the voter. And we have to keep that in mind, that we are here to serve those people, and those are the people that call the shots. We're supposed to march to their drum.
Perfectly said.
Yeah, and I think that it's kind of a situation, don't you think, Ralph, where it's all hands on deck at this point. The city of Marion finds itself in a kind of precarious situation with this fiscal caution status that it's trying to navigate, trying to put together a plan. A plan was actually submitted by the administration in consultation with the department heads and city council, submitted to the auditor of state for review. And it's kind of your game plan on how you think you're going to get out of fiscal caution, or to avoid an escalation from fiscal caution to fiscal watch or fiscal emergency. And that would be the worst case scenario, where the state of Ohio comes in and basically runs things on behalf of the government, the elected government. So you guys submitted that report here within the past week. So Jason, go ahead and pull that up, and we'll kind of go through each of those items. Okay, so as you've probably heard, folks, I know we've discussed it on previous episodes of the Watchmen's report. The city had a number of funds with negative balances, and some of them are quite substantial. So under this one, it talks about some of those funds, and you can see the ones that are listed there, and then what their corrective or correction plan is. Contracting with qualified provider by March 1st, 2026 to find the evidence needed to rectify action, item number 1. Then it talks with local resources to facilitate this process. With approval from the Marion City Council, the process will not only help us correct this item, but will also set in place a new standard operating procedure to avoid these issues moving forward. Now, Ralph, do you think that that item has largely been addressed when they took away the general ledger override authority? Is that kind of what it's indicating there, when not being able to go negative without the awareness and the approval of the auditor or through council and a correct appropriation? Is that kind of what that's talking about?
Yeah, I think that that override situation, that was a bad thing from day one. Why that was there, I have no idea. Because when you're dealing with budgets, and especially we're not allowed to pass a negative budget, deficit budgets are a no-no. And to be able to go in and override something, if council says, okay, we'll authorize $50,000 for this item or this project, and somebody can go in there and make it 55 or 60, you don't really need council. Yeah, I mean, it's defeating the whole purpose of having an oversight group to look over things. Hopefully, the state auditor's office will will look at this and say, yeah, they've taken a corrective step already, and we'll be satisfied if they continue with that, and so they will pass action item number 1.
And as far as like a consultant that will be hired, and we'll see more reference to that in the items moving forward here in this action plan. Do they have somebody in mind? I mean, will it be another company like Veritas that will help them go through and reconcile the books, or do they have another company in mind?
I think the mayor mentioned that at the council meeting, and I'm not sure I can remember the name. I know that New World is going to chip in and help a little bit. But as far as an outside firm, I believe the only outside firm that I recall them talking about was for the ADP, the W-2s and the payroll mess that we have. So hopefully that gets resolved too. But I believe it's all hands on deck, like you said. I know the mayor said that when we start doing these corrections, he has already commandeered 6 clerks from different departments throughout the city and said, okay, you will go there, you will learn this stuff, and New World's going to come up here and they're going to teach them. Well, no, not New World. I think I can't remember. I'm sorry, I can't remember the name.
ADP.
Yeah, and they're going to teach them the payroll so that we have more than just one person that knows how to do payroll.
So
that in itself is a disaster too.
is that what happened? Because that's what we heard when we were listening to the council meeting the other night, is that there was only one person that actually had that knowledge. Was I hearing that incorrectly?
Well, yeah. Back last year, I believe it was, I can't remember if it was December 24, I believe it was, but Miranda's sister-in-law, I think, was the payroll clerk, and she resigned to get a different job. And so that left the only payroll clerk that we had was gone. So Miranda tried to jump in and fill the spot, but not having anybody cross-trained, I don't think she was fully cross-trained either. So she was learning as she went. And then she hired another person in there, and that person only stayed a couple weeks and left. I don't know, the story behind that, whether she left because she was dissatisfied with the job, or maybe one of her previous applications for employment came through. Mm-hmm. But she left, and so that left us again with the auditor, who is supposed to be managing the office, actually trying to be a payroll clerk, and that did not work well at all. And so now we do have a payroll clerk, Jeff, and so the ADP is going to train Jeff, and they're going to train the other 6 people, and so we'll have 7 people that have an idea, or at least a working knowledge of payroll.
That sounds like a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah, and like I said, folks, there's a lot of topics, so we're kind of intermixing things. So this is the action plan that was submitted to the auditor of state, but as you've probably found out there through that conversation, the payroll issues with the auditor's office and the implementation of the ADP software. So that's that topic. And then Miranda McGinnis was also mentioned. She has resigned. So lots to discuss here. So we'll kind of tackle this one first, and then we'll get into the specifics with the ADP and all the rest. Just too many balls to juggle around the city of Marion. It seems.
Hopefully they'll start settling down, and some of those balls we can lay aside.
Yeah, the financial situations are there's so many of them that it's hard to stay on topic, but we'll try.
Yeah, right. All right, so action number 2. significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, and direct material noncompliance with Ohio laws disclosed in its financial audits for 2020 and 2021. Those are the last two official audits that have been published by the city of Marion and submitted to the auditor of state. Reconciliation was unreconciled by $314,347, with a book balance being greater than the bank balance due to the lack of monthly bank to book reconciliations and the complexity of the city's accounting software, i.e., hybrid cash accrual basis. That's not an insignificant point, I think, to highlight. There was reconciliations that were being done historically. So if we had Mr. Landon on tonight, it's not like that was not being done. It was a difference between the type of reconciliation, cash basis or modified accrual basis, blah, 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 blah. You can go through all those accounting things. But the big thing, we think, a very significant part was that they say complexity of the software, i.e. New World. We already know that there's many, 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 many issues with New World. And I don't think that those issues can be stressed enough. So, folks, I encourage you, check out Marion Watch's page, all the articles that have been published on there with the evidence showing the issues with New World. I don't think that anybody would be able to correctly do accounting within that software. And that's another topic, because we're going to talk about the information systems committee and all that stuff and the plans for that, getting rid of New World. So bear with us, but action item number 2 does mention that. So I think that's something to definitely point out. And then on page 79, financial audit for 2021, reconciliation was unreconciled with the bank balance being greater than the book balance by $543,079. They don't know. That's just the fact of the matter, is they really don't know the figures that they're working with. Is that a safe statement, Ralph?
Exactly. When you have reconciliations, when you have mixed accounting, and you have bank balances that differ one way or the other, there's a problem, and you need to get in there and find out what that problem is. And you know how you do that, because once an audit is done, it's closed. You can't go back and you can't make a change in a previous year that's been audited and closed. That's just not something you can't do. The door's been locked and you can't open that door. So you have to pick up and go from there. But if you don't know what you're dealing with, it's kind of hard to do that. It's kind of like walking around in the dark trying to find something. You have no idea of where to look or what you're going to find.
And honestly, I know we've talked about that before, but I think that was one of the major problems with Veritas, or their experience, not them themselves, but they weren't able to go back a little bit further in time because those audits had already been completed.
Right.
So they were only looking, at 2020 at the time, or maybe even 2021. And I think that was a huge hindrance to their ability to get things done, because the problem pre-existed. It goes back a while. Now, whether or not they want to say, oh, well, we had clean audit reports or whatever that were filed in 17 and 18 and 19 and what have you, I think that there were underlying issues that were not made at least abundantly clear at that point. But if you had another set of eyes going over things at that point in time, I'm pretty confident, given the issues that we know with the system, that those would have been evident. So the corrective action plan for this second item is kind of rehashing the plan in the first. So the administration will seek and obtain council's approval to engage a qualified consultant entity / firm with an expertise in performing reconciliations. They're expected to be on board, in place, and performing the necessary work to reconcile and address the items on or before March 1st, 2026. That's the deadline that's mentioned throughout this corrective action plan, isn't it, Ralph? So you guys are really going to have to get on top of this and get this stuff going.
Right. Yeah, March 1st is the deadline that was set by the auditor's office, that this had to be in place. We had to submit our plan by the 23rd of January, and then they will review it. And we still don't know if they're going to accept this plan or not. Once they do, then we have to start following the plan.
Is there any update that you've heard now that you're on finance committee as to the progress with the release of the next year's audit report, so 2022? I know probably in November, when they published, I think November 25th or 23rd is when they published the 2021 financial audit report for the city of Marion. They mentioned, I think, the end of January was the target for the completion and release of the 2022. Is that moving forward as scheduled?
I have not heard. We will probably hear something on that committee Monday night. I'm sure that'll be brought up because I just don't know of any specific companies or dates or anything that they are going to proceed, like the auditor's office is going to be able to finish up an audit. I know they said they're in progress. They're working. They have a schedule that they would like to keep, but I don't know if they're on schedule or not. We'll find that out Monday night, probably.
Now, Wezlynn, would this be a potential situation where statewide contacts would be of potential assistance, identifying maybe a company, an advisor, consultant that would, and resources that might be available, or looking throughout the state house and saying, hey, have there been other municipalities that have kind of had these same situations, and how did they tackle them? Is this something you think like that would be an appropriate I don't know, potential collaboration for like a state representative?
Well, I think in a lot of cases, it depends on the state representative and their philosophy around their engagement with the local municipality. For me personally, this is something that I would work my hardest to reach into my toolbox. Even if there wasn't a formal plan laid out that is prescribed to me as a state representative to help in this way, if my partners in the city of Marion, or any, even if it was Marysville, if they were enduring something like this and they needed help and resources and expertise, data, I would go above and beyond to find those people and reach out so that we can cut through some of this discovery. I mean, what this council has had to do already is incredible. The amount of work, the studying, the review of data, they've almost been like attorneys in their own right. They've gone through an entire discovery process really on their own, thankfully with the help of people like you also collecting information and bringing it to the public. But if I were elected, and right now I would be calling every expert I could find at the state level and see who I could bring to the table to help make this process better for our elected so that they could get this situated for our voters and taxpayers. That's just the way that I function. I'm a problem solver. I'm not an expert in any of these things, but I sure know how to find experts, and that is something that I would do personally as a state representative for our district.
Yeah, because I think even within the 86th district, again, it encompasses all of Union County and a portion of Marion County, including the city of Marion. You have a lot of additional expertise and resources located within the 86th district. I mean, you think Marysville as a city is smaller than the city of Marion, but it's much, much wealthier. And it's in a lot of, different circumstances, but you also have additional resources there. Jerome Township, where you were trustee, one of the fastest growing townships in America, I believe, right? So
yes, it's in the top 20. And to your point, I can speak on that right now. Ralph and I have had great discussions, and this doesn't have anything to do with the information we're looking at on the screen right now. But to give an example, economic development is something that is needed in the city of Marion. We need jobs, we need commercial tax revenue. I already have reached out to our council members, Ralph being one of them, going, let me look in my toolbox and let me tap into my Rolodex, if you will, and let's see who we can bring to the table that can help guide us on this. And Ralph was in the room, and I believe Sean Barr and Twyla and Mary Stoneburner and Pam Larkin, Ron Prater was there, and George Lang was in the room with us talking about a meeting. He's the Senate Majority Whip in the Senate. He was a former trustee in Westchester, one of the wealthiest townships in the state of Ohio. He is an economic development guru in this state. He knows how to get things done. He understands policy and how to apply it locally. And so that's an example of a mentor of mine that is battle tested, very successful in economic development across Ohio, installing policy and driving this. So that's an example of the partnership that I'm trying to form. Let's bring someone who is tried and tested, battle tested, bring him to the table, and let's let him guide us on how we can bring Marion, the city of Marion, back to its former glory. I'm on a mission for it because Marion is truly a gem. It is, I even hate to say diamond in the rough because it was already a diamond once. We just need to shine that city back up. And so that's an example of the partnership that I wanted to bring to the table, partnerships like that. Another one was the economic development director position within the city, tapping into other ways to handle a position like that where the taxpayers aren't having to foot the bill for this. And I've proposed something that I think works very, very well, and that is through experience and understanding on the state level how these tools can be used, and seeing where we can implement these tools to benefit our voters and drive commercial tax revenue in the city, and do it in a way where we see results. So those are two examples right out of the gate, and I'm not even elected yet, but I've had fun talking to Ralph and the city council about these things, because once this primary is over, we are rolling up our sleeves and we're going to do great things. There's so much that can be done with partnerships that I don't think that the city has been afforded yet.
I think that that's going to be crucial, because this is not going to be as short term as we proceed through this corrective action plan. it's not going to be something that's done in a month, 3 months, a year. I mean,
We're in it
it's
for the
gonna be,
long haul, aren't we,
it's
Ralph?
it's
Yes,
gonna be there,
yes.
right? So now Jay went fast forwarded through that, but again, we're talking about hiring a consultant, getting them to go in, reconcile things, and then the other important part of that was training. So making sure that once it's fixed, we train the people so that we have enough people that are cross trained that we won't have issues if somebody leaves or gets hit by a bus. You know, we have enough people in there that know how to do the job. So I think that's a crucial component of any sustainable, successful plan. So, all right, action item number 3. City had 14 funds as of October 31st, 2025, with deficit fund balances. And the gross amount of those, or the cumulative total, was just under $9 million, $8,877,996. And there are not sufficient resources in the general fund or any funds that may legally be transferred to subsidize the funds. And that's typically what they've done in the past, or what they will do is they'll transfer funds from the general fund into one of these other funds, these proprietary funds. Let's say that it was like the Aquatic Center or Marion Area Transit, which, don't get me started on Marion. Ralph's probably like, damn it, Cody, I don't want to hear any more about Marion Area Transit from you. But there's a lot of funds that are supposed to be self-sustaining, and they're far from it. So then the taxpayers bail it out through their operational fund, which is the general fund. So this is basically telling you that that ain't an option here with these funds. So this is their corrective action plan. Ooh, Fund 204 only had 39 cents. Hey, you look at that one and you say, that ain't too bad. You know,
We can afford that. Yeah.
39 cents. Let me get in my pocket and pay that deficit balance off, you know. And then we got the health fund. That's a little bit more, $6,652.69. Both of those will be corrected immediately with the general fund. Parks, over $500,000. That one's a little bit more serious. The item will be placed on a payment plan, and approximately 5% repaid from the general fund. And then that's going to be spread out, a repayment plan over 20 years. So again, as I said, this is not something that's going to be resolved immediately. It's spread out over time. Municipal motor vehicle license tax, another fairly modest one. So they're just going to cut back on expenses in 2026 to clear up the negative amount. So they're going to be revising the budget to cover that. Police was another big one. Police is one of the major expenses for the city of Marion, 1.15 million. So they're going to place that on a 20-year repayment plan. Transfer a portion from the general fund. Dispatch, another payment plan, a little over $43,000, 20-year repayment plan. Fire was over $2.5 million deficit. Again, 20-year payment plan. Adult drug court, $820, corrected immediately. The ESID, very small amount, $49, corrected immediately. Let's scroll down, Jay. Softball field improvement, reimbursed by grants of $43,000 will be taken care of by a grant. Marion Area Transit, my favorite topic, $734,000. Item is self-sustaining with current general fund. What the hell does that mean, Ralph? It's like, if the general fund bails it out, then it's self-sustaining. Is that what that means?
Well, basically, it should be paying for itself.
It should, but it doesn't.
Well,
doesn't
and
even
we're going
close.
to try to correct that.
Yeah, there's more on that here, folks. So don't despair. Sanitation, so your trash, 407,000. Storm sewer. Look at that. Storm sewer. Good Lord. $2.727 million deficit. And landfill monitoring, a little over 150,000. All right, so now we're getting to the plans for these particular funds. So Jay, go ahead and scroll down a little bit. Okay, so storm rates, we have a fund deficit of over $2.7 million. This didn't happen overnight, did it, Ralph?
No, that's happened over a period of years. And that's it could be bad accounting, and it most likely is people not paying their bills, because there's a lot of outstanding money on unpaid bills.
Yeah, and they haven't revisited the rates since
Correct.
2017. There hasn't been any change, any increase. And you look at how much inflation that has been created by the Federal Reserve and the federal government over the past 5 years. And you don't have the responsible governance to say, you know what, the dollar is losing value all the time. So maybe we should be looking at these on an annual basis, or at the very least every other year, and adjusting for inflation. So the fact of the matter is, folks, you had that going on, or there wasn't responsible management. If this was a business, if this was a private business, and let's say you're selling cookies, and all your ingredients for a cookie, it cost you $1, and you said, I'm going to make $1.25. I make 25 cents. That's pretty good return on investment. So in 2017, ingredients cost you $1. You sell it for $1.25. It'd be like you running that business, and the cost goes up to $1.50 in 5 years, and you're still selling the damn cookie for $1.25.
Mm-hmm.
You're losing money. You're supposed to adjust for inflation. And that's what these pinheads that ran Marion City government for so long were not doing. So you got to pay the piper. And when you're talking about a deficit of $2.7 million that's in a repayment plan that's spread out over 20 years and increasing rates, you're going to see a fairly substantial increase in your storm sewer bill, right, Ralph?
Yeah, let me say something. When these last rate increases went through back in 2004 and 2017, there was a clause that said that these would be revisited every other year, and they were supposed to go back and, just like you said, for inflation or cost of an increase of cost of goods, and adjust the rates on a semi-annual basis, and take care of the increase. And if that's the case, then the increases would be, I mean, the bill right now would be a lot higher than it really is. But since that didn't happen, we've been losing money. And now we're going to have to jack the rates up. And some of these rates, we felt that were, to bring them up to where they should be was too much of a burden. And so some of those we're only taking halfway, because it's just too much of a burden on the taxpayer. But this 20-year payment plan, I believe that's our suggestion. But what if the state comes back and says, "No, we want you to pay it back in 10 years"? Then, we're still kind of behind the 8 ball, because the increases in income that we're projecting are designed for the 20-year plan. So we're going to be hurting again if they come back and say, we want you to do it in 10 years or 15 years. If they accept the 20, I think we're good.
And the only thing that can be done outside of this council being great business-minded people, because that's what they are doing right now. They're operating, they have to approach this like a business, and I commend them. Is, Ralph, wouldn't you agree we have to make this an engine for economic development and growth?
Yes.
So that we can drive revenue back into this city, so that we can handle this financial burden that we're faced with right here. And that is where those partnerships that we're speaking of are so critical.
I agree. Yeah, the economic growth, the more growth we can get in here, the more income we're going to get, and it's going to be a lot easier. If we keep up with inflation and the cost of goods. If we don't do that, then we're going to be right back in the same hole in 5 years.
I liked my cookie analogy.
I did too. Pretty
Come on,
simple.
it was a good analogy. Come on.
Yeah.
But that's what you got to think about, folks. If you were running a business, if this was your household budget, how would you adjust? And that's the thing that really frustrates, I think, the average man, the average woman out there that tries to work a job, pay bills, pays taxes, tries to be responsible, is that we have to manage our household budgets responsibly. Those of us that are not, getting money from welfare, government handouts, or what have you, we have to be responsible. And we expect our politicians, we expect our government to be good stewards with our hard-earned tax dollars. And when they're not managing their businesses how they should be for years, and then they accrue these deficits. Now you can say that, it was the lack of accounting or lack of reconciliation or the system. Yeah, that all plays into it. But they knew all along, they have known for years that they didn't revisit the rate increases on things like this.
Yep.
They were well aware that the general fund has been bailing out a lot of these special revenue funds and enterprise funds for years. So that was irresponsible. And you've got people that they're gone now, thankfully. Well, we're in those positions for 20 years, 14 years, chairman of the finance committee, what have you. And all this shit happened under their watch. And did they say anything? No. So,
Yeah.
you got to
The
fix the
taxpayer
issue.
did not deserve to watch this implode like this.
Right.
This is
Yeah. And if you want to be pissed off, because a lot of people are going to be pissed off, they're going to say, oh, Aqua's trying to raise my water rates by 20%. City of Marion's raising my storm sewer rate. City of Marion's raising my trash, my sanitation, blah, blah, blah. Well, you need to be pissed off at the right people and say, this is, this isn't this current group. This current group is just left here holding the bag trying to fix the
Right.
problem.
They're trying to solve it. It's been going on for a long time, and it's not just the revenue issues with not increasing, all this other stuff that is millions in the negative. A lot of this stuff has snowballed because of, and Ralph's been on and talked about this extensively, and I won't go into it because, quite frankly, I'm tired of the subject, but I love it because it's my baby. But the software issues and all the secrets hidden and the things that weren't shared and the shared passwords and inappropriate user access and access rights and all this stuff, over the years has snowballed into this giant financial catastrophe and black hole. Is that pretty much the sum of it, Mr. Ralph?
Yeah, I think that, there's a lot of things that go into it. Some of the software issues, and also, the unpayment of sanitation bills. You can't cut off storm sewer. If somebody's not paying their bill, how do you go and shut their storm sewer off? You can stop the trash pickup, but that storm sewer is going to continue to do what it does. And so we have to try to figure out a solution to the problem without breaking the bank. And in this case, the bank is the taxpayers in Marion City. And, we don't want to have to raise anything. But common sense says that, if you're at home and your bills go up, you've got to find a way to get more money. You go to your boss, you say, look, I'm hurting, I need a raise. And if you get the raise, or if you don't get the raise, you may end up having to go out and get a part-time job, or maybe put the wife or the husband to work, or part-time jobs. But we have to raise money some way. And we don't have the luxury of the federal government where we can print our own money. So we have to go to the taxpayers and explain the situation, make it as plain as possible. Hopefully they understand and they'll bite the bullet with us.
Yeah,
And in the meantime, I'll work at the state level to make sure that I bring as much money back home to Marion as I possibly can. It is a gem of a city, and this is not what the taxpayers deserve. But again, Ralph, you are doing a great job. So
well, I'm trying. So sometimes don't feel that way though.
Don't take your foot off the pedal.
Yeah, I know that we talk to the council people constantly, and I mean, we've had all of them that we've been working with for a long time, like Ralph and Twyla and those guys. They've all had bad days with us, and they get frustrated. I mean, it's got to be frustrating. We saw it from the outside, but I can't imagine what it's like from the inside. So you guys are, I mean, what we saw from the outside was an administration that saw the problems, was brought, more problems from public people such as ourselves and others, and said no more and put their foot down and is doing what they need to do to fix the problem.
I was talking with Mayor Collins just the other night, and I told him, I said, Bill, I feel sorry for you because you were elected into a job and you stepped into a hornet's nest. And I said, but you are strong enough that you decided that you're going to take the bull by the horns and wrestle this thing to the ground, because it's a problem that needs to be solved, and it's only going to get worse if we don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, you all inherited something that is just an animal in itself, and you can't do it alone. You need a lot of partners and to overcome this. So, but as far as the deficit here, Ralph, what are the voters saying about this right now? What is happening when you're out talking to people? What's the mood? Do they feel like they're willing to see these increases and not be, angry at council? Do they understand what's the mood?
Well, from what I'm seeing, there are different stages of grief, and basically the city of Marion is in a grieving state right now because we found out that we've got a serious problem, and the voters right now are in the finger pointing stage, where they're trying to say, okay, it's somebody's fault, this person's fault, and whatever. Once we get through that, then I think that people will say, okay, we need to do something about it. And you're still going to have those people that, and quite honestly, I really feel sorry for some of the people in this town because they cannot afford to pay these increased rates. I don't know what we're going to do with that. But it's going to be a tremendous burden on some of the households in this city. I don't want to see that happen. And if there was any way that I could figure out to not have that happen, that's what I would do. But at this point in time, and if somebody's got a better idea, I'd sure welcome to hear it. At this point in time, the only thing I see us going forward is through this plan that we submitted.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a bitter pill to swallow, but you have to take your medicine in order to get better. And Jay, stay up there. Go back to item number 3. We're going to finish this shit. All right, sanitation rates increase. We already talked about that. It's going to be a fairly modest increase. The deficit, the yearly allocation is not as substantial as with the storm rate. Recycling service to change. Recycling's going away, right, Ralph?
Well, I don't know for sure if it is or not. I know that I remember when we first started recycling here in the city of Marion, we had to get these big blue boxes. But at that time, the recycling center was paying the city of Marion for their recyclables. Now we pay them. And I think it's like $7 or $11 a ton that we have to pay just to be able to recycle things. So we could eliminate a lot of that thing. And if the recycling does go away, I would think that maybe they would have recycling centers. If people wanted to continue recycling, they could take their stuff to the recycle center and drop it off. If that's the plan.
I think that's what I saw, was that there's going to be other centers, or going to put out there where you can take it. But as far as the city goes, it costs some money and it's going to go bye-bye. So, and if you look at I think I've seen statistics on that too, as far as general refuse tonnage and recycling tonnage. I think there was a report I saw from a couple of years ago. Recycling is it's fairly modest, but you still have that cost. So
right.
That's going to save
cost of the employees and the trucks and things like that.
Again, things that they should be aware of when they're running a business, a government. Something like that, again, is kind of a proprietary sanitation enterprise fund. It's something that government doesn't need to be into, that the private sector can supply. You have privately run trash companies or sanitation companies. The city of Marion, at some point years ago, decided that, hey, we're going to enter this business because we think it's going to be a net savings or whatever for our citizenry. So they entered that. And I think in Marion's case, it was the connections with the unions and stuff, largely too, that made that decision. But for whatever the reason was, they decided to get in that. Well, any of those enterprise funds, again, they're supposed to be self-sustaining. They're supposed to fund themselves through their fares and through, if they get grants or whatever, other sources other than from the taxpayers of that municipality. So if they're not managed well, if they're not doing something that causes them to need to be bailed out by the general fund, by the operational fund, the taxpayer supported fund, then something needs to change. So that's how all these different things, the mentality should be. It should be across the board. If you're an enterprise fund, you better be self-sustaining. Otherwise, we're cutting your budget, or we're increasing your fares, or whatever we have to do. That should be the mindset, because that's how you get negative fund balances. And that's how you, especially when you don't know exactly what your reconciliation is, where your finances are, that's how you accrue all this, is because it constantly went negative, constantly had to get bailed out. And then you have the general override ledger authority and all that crap. But all right, my rant's over. Tax break to end for residents working in other communities. So this is what I call the Ayers Ratliff, because he was a sponsor of it, to give the full credit for people who live in the city of Marion, who work outside, that have a income tax liability paid to another municipality. Ratliff came in and increased that from a 50% credit on your Marion liability to 100%. And this is what, 2023, I think it was. And he was trying to say, oh, well, we've got enough money. We're in good enough shape, Ralph. We can go ahead and afford to forego this income tax revenue, which is a critical component of our budget for the city of Marion, we're in good enough shape. Even though on the other side of his mouth that entire time he was saying, "Oh, we don't know where our finances are and things are bad and blah 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 blah." Well, um, party's over on that. So if you have a liability to the city of Marion, everybody's got one of 2%. If you live in the city, you owe 2% to the city on municipal income tax. If you work in Delaware or Gahanna or wherever the hell, you're also going to be paying them. So that's just how it is. That's how it was. And we're returning back to that. Right, Ralph?
Yes, and the fact is that the citizens of Marion, when they voted for the income tax, they voted to pay an income tax to the city of Marion. There was nothing in there that said, okay, unless you work out of town, and then you can take what you pay out of town off of what you pay Marion, which is exactly what's happening. I don't want to raise taxes on anybody in the city of Marion, but I do think that if you live in the city of Marion and you utilize the police and the fire and the street department to plow your street and use the parks, you need to pay for those things just like the rest of us do. Just because you work outside the city limits should not give you the exemption for having to pay Marion City tax, because you are partaking of every service that every tax-paying citizen has, and they're paying for it, and you're not. And I just don't think that's right. One of my biggest rants was when I found out that they had 100% rebate on their taxes if they worked outside the city of Marion. And I thought, why is that? Why would that be? Now I know some people, well, the people that are going to end up having to pay it are going to say it's a tax increase. You're increasing our taxes by 100% or whatever. But it's not. It's what you should be paying anyway. And if you have an issue with that, the issue is with the city you work in and not the city of Marion, because this is where you live.
It's a good point. And I have researched and written extensively on the detrimental, counterproductive nature of municipal income taxes. Ralph, I hope you have read some of that material.
Yeah.
The goal, folks, should be once Marion gets its crap in order, financial house in order, it should really try to put a plan together, whether that is a 5-year plan once everything's fixed, to be able to reduce or potentially at some point, maybe down the line, eliminate the municipal income tax. It has had a negative impact on economic development and
Oh, they
growth.
always will have. Yeah.
Yeah. So the goal should be, in the long term, to reduce or eliminate the municipal income tax. All the data, historical, contemporary, it all is very clear that that has directly caused the exodus of business from the city of Marion. And I could go on and on and on about this, but so yeah, this is happening right now. And it probably sucks if you pay income taxes to, where you work in another city. But you could look at it this way too. You could say, hey, that's how it used to be. And then they recently changed it. First, they went to 50% credit, and then they went to 100% credit. You can say, hey, well, I got a break there for a while. Now we're back to square one where it should have been all along.
Right.
But support politicians in the future. Once we get through all this stuff, once Marion gets through this, fiscal caution, get everything fixed, look to putting together realistic plans for the reduction or the eventual elimination of the municipal income tax. Wezlynn, is that something that you would support? I mean, do
Well,
you think that
yes,
municipalities should be looking to reduce tax burdens in a sustainable way?
right, because here's what we're going to hear the taxpayer say. Well, I pay my property tax and I passed the levy, and you're going to hear this, what they pay right now. And so it looks like you know, as Ralph said, the voters are in that finger pointing stage. How did this happen in the first place? Whose fault is it? So they're not going to say, well, I, use this service and so I'm going to pay for it. They're going to feel like they already paid for it. And I know that Ralph's facing that right now, that's what they're running into. So what we are going to have to do is work together to come up with a plan to do, once we get through some of this, to reduce burden and reduce taxes. And there are a few tools that, as we've been talking and I've been listening, that have popped up in my head right now. Not one person will have all the answers. It's going to take a team. Actually, Ralph, I'd like to commit to you right now, if you'll have it, a few council members, and I have about 3 people in mind that I think that can help do what you're saying. Ultimately, reduce income tax. I know that we need money right now to take care of this deficit, right? We got to figure out how to deal with that. 20-year plan, the state might come back and say, nope, you got to do it in 10 years. But as we're discussing the issues and the economic development, there are a few things that popped into my mind that I think it would take a panel of people and get some experts in the room to kind of figure out where we can have some drivers, where the mission isn't, well, we just got to increase taxes on the people. So if you'll allow me, elected or not, I'd like to pull those people into the room with a few council members where it's not a quorum, obviously, unless they're invited to committee, to come talk to you guys about a few ideas that could help get us in that direction.
Yeah, that's probably something that I would have to run by Mary as president of council, but it sounds like a great idea to me.
Well, and as I'm thinking about some of, you look at Westchester Township where George Lang, and I keep bringing up George because he's just really good at this. They don't have an income tax there at all, right? And they were able to raise the funds to take care of the infrastructure completely without one dime from the taxpayers to do that. So there's a lot of brilliant minds in Ohio, and we need them in the room to help support Marion. And I think that we can make that happen.
Yeah, I hope so. And I know that there are states in this country that don't have an income tax. There are cities that don't have an income tax. How they do it, I don't know. And I think until everything is made free, we're always going to have some type of burden on the taxpayer.
Oh, it's always going to be there a little bit.
The question is what kind of a burden it's going to be, and it has to be a fair burden. People do not like to pay taxes for something they don't use. People don't like to pay school taxes once all their kids get out of school. And I can understand that. I haven't had any children in school for many, many years. But yet Marion City does not have a school tax, but if we did, I'd be paying it. I pay property taxes, which goes to the school, some of it. But, until we figure out how we're going to make it fair, it's a quandary that we're in.
We'll get through
I
it.
agree. And there's, but if you look on a comparative basis, and I've done it across the board, different metrics, and you look at compare cities and municipalities that have a lower sales tax or a lower income tax or no income tax, and they're doing much better. I just recently looked at retail sales from a GDP standpoint and comparing that and looking at county sales taxes and see if there's a correlation between the counties that have really high GDP when it comes to retail sales. So having stores that sell things. And is there a correlation between that and lower sales taxes? There is, even on a per capita basis. It's not just these major metropolitan areas, Columbus, Cleveland, Cincinnati, Dayton, whatever. You think, well, that's where all the shopping is and stuff. Yeah, but if you look on a per capita basis, and you look at those counties that have lower sales taxes, they're actually doing much better than comparably sized communities that have a higher sales tax. So that's the kind of, I think, thought process, the mentality that needs to be had is studying as the city gets through all this. This should be all hands on deck, main focus on getting out of this right now. But moving forward, once the financial house is in order, that's what we want to see. We want to see these people, like Wezlynn mentioned, that have done it in other communities at the state level. We want to get that advice. We want to implement cutting edge policies, things that are going to see Marion into the next century as a leader once again. So I think that it's an opportunity. Gonna suck for a while. Got to go through this stuff. Nobody likes it, but it's gonna put Marion in a better position moving forward. All right, I swear we're gonna make it through this. So we're ending the tax break. Park shelter rental rates increased. Not talking a whole lot. I don't know how many people actually rent the park shelters and what the actual revenues are, but they're going to increase them by $2,200 a year more. Bus transportation rates increased. Again, haven't had a increase to Marion area transit since 2004. Ridiculous for an entity that is supposed to be self-sustaining through grants and fares. And I'm gonna go off again on Marion area transit and how much of a waste it is, but I won't. I've already done it before, Ralph. I don't need to go down that same path again. But there's gonna be a little bit of an increase.
Again, this was one of those. This was one of those in 2004 where they were going to review it every 2 years and didn't. So
Yeah.
as a result, all of those tax or those rate increases never got implemented. And if that had been implemented, we might still be in the same position we're in now, but we wouldn't have to raise the rates. It might be a nickel instead of 30 or 40 cents or a half dollars.
Yeah, I mean, if they would have raised it $1 a ride, they'd at least have another $6.
Right.
For the 6 people that actually.
I see what you did there.
All right, I'll stop shitting all over
Bring 'em on
Marion
you,
area.
Cody.
Okay. So total increase in revenue per year, 3.484 million. So there you go. Jay, what's action item number 4? All right. So the city has not reconciled its accounting journals and ledger with the bank. The last reconciliation was December 31st, 2019. So the administration will seek and obtain council's approval to engage a qualified consultant entity firm with an expertise in performing reconciliations. So same action item that we saw above, that they're going to hire a firm of some sort to come in and help them, have them in place on or before March 1st, 2026. And going to have a schedule containing performance goals with timelines to continue to monitor progress as to completing of these actions required by action item number 4. That was kind of a problem before when you had Veritas, when you had some of these other consultants that were hired. And largely, I think, was because they didn't they didn't have the communication, they didn't have the response, they didn't have the collaboration with former Marion City Auditor Miranda McGinnis. So again, they can't do everything on their own. They need somebody in there that's going to work with them, that's going to collaborate with them, all hands on deck. And this is just saying that we're going to track, we're going to have timelines, we're going to provide oversight, overview, and then also have this company recommend procedures to be adopted as to the processes, including training, in order to prevent the issue from recurring. So another stressed item is the training.
Right.
So if you get somebody in here to try to go through and fix things, we want to make sure that the staff is properly trained and cross-trained, so that if you do have turnover, then you're not having issues where there's one person that knows how to do payroll or what have you.
Right, and this isn't the first time we've heard this. We've been informed. I know Ralph has corroborated this on shows before and in talks, that a lot of these issues with, the reconciliation issues go back prior to 2019. It was mentioned by Veritas, so that's a myth anyway. They've had problems with the software and the reconciliations and the processes not being shared, and apparently the state of Ohio is aware that certain things weren't shared forward across administrations. So these people, they got to start working together. It's just ridiculous, man.
Well, and one thing too about, action item 4 and not doing reconciliations, you have to do reconciliations to know how much money you have. And so that causes me to look at the 14 accounts that were in negative balance. Are those accurate figures? Unless we've done reconciliations, we don't really know if those are accurate figures or not. It could be less, it could be more. Hopefully it's less, but I don't think those numbers are set in stone.
That's a good point, because you really don't know. And again, that general ledger override authority, that was not changed. That switch was not switched off until, what was
recently.
it?
Real
Late
recently.
October, November, something like that.
Right.
I mean, it's
And
not that long ago.
We had talked to Ralph and Twyla and others about that. I don't know what, Ralph, few months before they actually pulled the trigger on that.
Yep.
But we were trying to figure out which software control, and we were figured out it had to have been something like that. And then all of a sudden the auditor of state drops the hammer on that. We do have council minutes. We've talked about it extensively, but there are council minutes where I believe it's Mr. Schauber. I could bring it up if I had to. Yeah, it's Mr. Schauber. Asked how accounts can be spent, over appropriations. And basically the excuse was given that Miss McGinnis doesn't micromanage departments, and it was left at that. So this is all just, a culmination of crazy that's gone on since probably 2010. And it's just greatly increased the problems. I mean, quite frankly, and cost millions of dollars over the years. This is that council minute I was talking about where they were asking about the appropriations.
That
We've got
doesn't, in
tons
my
of this
opinion,
stuff.
Jay, that does not get the kind of attention that
Right.
it needs to.
This has been a problem for a long
Yeah.
time. And the symptoms that we keep calling silent sabotage, we named it that for a specific reason. It's either actual sabotage or it's incompetence that's so bad that it would mimic to an IT professional or a financial professional from the outside looking in, sabotage. So one way or the other, it's all bad. And when you start adding in stuff like this, where we find multiple documented instances of these things being questioned, nobody having an answer to it. A software person, Ralph, knew when we showed him this. He was like, well, I mean, it's right there. He's an IT guy back in the day, and he owned a computer store. He knew right away. He was like, well, there's the proof right there that it's been And we already knew that, but like I said, we talked to council, we talked to other candidates, we talked to people higher in offices, and these are all the evidence in the silent sabotage articles that we've put together for this thing. This GL override thing's serious business. Like, these are laws that, you're not supposed to spend over the appropriations. And these are also the symptoms that led us a long time ago to start theorizing that there were software problems and software safety switches that were off. We know now that there are multiple modules that were purchased and not used. It's just a huge mess. It's a multifaceted mess of crazy, and it's very difficult to understand.
And there's all kind of articles on MarionWatch.com if you want to read your heart out to your heart's content on all this stuff with documented sources, everything. Get your fill on that. But it's a good transition because I think action number 4, was that the last one, Jay? All right, so it's a good transition here as we can kind of close on a last few items for the evening. Cybersecurity ordinance, Ralph, that was moved forward. So with some amendments, and then also the reestablishment of the City of Marion's Information Systems Committee. So that's a crucial thing, I think, moving forward. You were named chairman of that committee, so congratulations on
I'm
that.
so happy to hear that. That's awesome. Yep.
This is great, Ralph.
What are your plans in the short term and the longer term for the information? Because honestly, like, you've got to start looking into converting from New World, the piece of crap, corrupt, non-functioning software that the Democrat administration under Scott Scherzer spent about $1 million on back in 2009. You're going to have to switch to something that actually works. So is that going to be on one of the first agendas for this committee, or what's on the agenda in the short term for that newly established committee, Ralph?
Well, I know that the cybersecurity thing with amendments we need to get that through council. It's up for reading next council meeting for a second reading. So hopefully we can get that done. We know we passed the minimum. What the state said, this is what you have to have by January 1st. So that got passed in December. But then we added some amendments to it to beef it up and to make it stronger. I've got a committee meeting Monday night with the Information Systems Committee, and hopefully we can put some reports that we want to try to receive to make sure that things are progressing. I went in and talked to Jacob yesterday.
Jacob Bolden, the IT manager for the city of Marion.
IT manager, yeah. And actually, he's a manager of a department of one. He's the only one there. So,
hey.
Yeah. So he's got his hands full. But we discussed the cybersecurity ordinance with the amendments. He didn't see any problems with those at all. I presented him the list of reports that I would hope that we can get through council. And we discussed those at length. I invited him up to the committee meeting Monday to give his viewpoints on them. And so hopefully we can start moving forward in that area, try to get some accountability. And, Jacob does a lot of those things already. It's just that they're not recorded anywhere. And so we need to get those recorded. So first of all, we have a history. And second of all, if somebody new comes in, like you said, Jacob can get an offer of a better job and be gone in 2 weeks. We need to have that documentation so that somebody else can come in and say, okay, this is what's been going on, and this is what I need to look for. So those are the two things that I have right now. as far as the new software system, I haven't gotten any definite things. I've just heard rumors, probably just like you have. But I'm hoping that when they start seriously considering that, that they will clue us in, that we can get involved in that. We can ask the right questions, and we can, insist on a side-by-side test period of time and things like that. Common sense items as far as the IT world goes, but things that didn't happen with the ADP. And we don't want that same kind of disaster in New World. We're going from New World to whatever system. The only system that I've heard mentioned was Software Solutions. And I think they talked to a couple other companies, but Software Solutions seems to be the best one. So whether they go with that, I don't know.
That's a familiar
Is
name. I
Jacob
remember
still
that one.
insisting that there was no issues with New World? When he came, one of the very few council meetings that I've seen him attend, or at least stand up and say anything a number of months ago. Remember that when he was like, "Oh, there's no issue with New World, everything's hunky dory."
Right.
Did he mention that? Is he still standing behind that?
No, we didn't discuss that. We just simply discussed, the reporting, what we hope to accomplish with that. I kind of explained to him what I had been told as far as the responsibilities of the Information Systems Committee, that anything to do with communication or IT would have to go through the committee, we would be brought on board, and we would have certain procedures that we'd follow to try to make sure that we don't have any disasters in the future.
Who does he report to? Bodine?
I think so. Yeah, I think that Mike is his supervisor. Quite honestly, I looked on
after that, when he got up there and said that there's no issues with New World and everything's great and whatnot, he lost all credibility in my book. And he's been in that position with, sounds like, if he's a department of one, it sounds like he might be kind of out on an island. And then you have these issues with ADP. I mean, was he involved in that? I mean, shouldn't the IT guy for the city be like doing some shit with the transition, the conversion to ADP?
Yeah,
And
they
we
should at
didn't
least
hear
be.
jack from him. Like,
They should at least be
is he just
overseeing it
allowed to like
closely.
install the random camera here and there across the city, and that's the extent of his job duties? Like, get real. Am I being too harsh here, Ralph?
Well, and I don't know the full story behind everything. Like you said, I don't know if he was involved in ADP or not. I think probably somewhat, but not to the extent that he should have been brought in. To me, IT, when you're going software, IT is one of the most important departments there is, and because they should have the expertise to be able to eliminate a lot of the problems. Now, you can't take an IT person and have him tell you what's needed on payroll, because that's not his specialty. But he can tell you how to get the information from here to there, and without any problems. And that's what we needed.
Yeah, and we haven't seen that. So you can blame Miranda or whatever in her lack of cooperation within her department, I suppose. But now she's gone, and you've got Martin Watts in there, and now it sounds like he's cooperating with his consultant and stuff. Well, I think that Jacob Bolden and the in-house IT person should be giving reports, should be working on this stuff. Why is the city paying him if he's not like doing stuff like this? And then he goes and has the gall to say that, "Oh, in my opinion, man, like New World is fine. There's no issues with New World." Meanwhile, you have all this mountain of evidence that New World was effed for years. And then you got this jackass saying that there's no issues. Like,
I
I
know
don't
it
know.
upset the people that I talked to out of state and consult with. They were all like, "What?" When they heard that meeting, they were like, "No issues, huh?" Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a kick in the nuts as far as I'm concerned for us with the amount we went through so much documentation from Veritas and former meetings and newspaper articles and you name it.
Audits.
And then he gets up there and says that there's nothing wrong with the New World System, and it doesn't sound like he's involved in anything. Now we have these issues, like I said, with ADP. And did we hear from Jacob Bolton? Did we hear anything from IT? Like, whoever is his boss, if it's Bodine, if it's Collins, they should put him in his place and make him actually do something. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's ridiculous. So I've ran.
Well,
Wezlynn,
in
shouldn't
defense of,
shouldn't an IT manager actually like be involved in like IT systems and like conversions and stuff? Isn't that just common sense?
I mean,
Right.
yes, they should, and there's been a lack of management on this, obviously. And if what I'm reading is correct and things were manually disabled, is that accurate? Security features or manual?
Oh
I
yeah,
mean,
it's all part of it.
I mean, to me, I don't even have words for that.
Yeah,
but
right.
All I can say is I'm grateful for the council that's there now, because I think that they see it and they see through any rhetoric or briefing that is saying everything is fine, and they're able to really look at this and scrutinize it, and they're doing the right thing. I can't imagine what it's like to be a council member in the city of Marion right now. But I'm just grateful that they're there. And like you were saying, Ralph, earlier, once the finger pointing is going to happen, but once we're past that, you guys will be the ones that restored sanity back to the process. And I just hope that you guys don't get the backlash for being there under the time when it was all exposed and imploded.
Right.
well, and that's commonly what happens is that they shoot the messenger. When you find the problem, it automatically becomes your problem. And I'm afraid that's probably what's going to happen is in this situation, that the mayor and his administration and this council is going to take the heat for things that happened 10 years ago, things that we weren't even involved in.
Right.
That's why this program's so important in getting the message out that you guys are there to restore and fix, and that's your commitment. And you were really there to help uncover all of this. So
Right.
Yeah,
Ralph and Twyla and all those guys.
This is a long haul. This is going to take a long time to fix, but I think with the right partnerships and the right media reporting the right things, we'll get through it. There's light at the end of the tunnel here.
I agree.
I did want to say something in Jacob's defense. Okay.
Oh, here it comes. Lay it on me, Ralph.
Now, just from what I observed, Jacob, like I said, is a department manager of one and supervisor of one. And I think that Jacob's main problem right now is he is so busy putting out fires, handling issues, that he doesn't
like
have
literal fires. Like there's fires around City Hall, and he's like got his extinguisher because he doesn't seem to be very competent when it comes to like actual IT stuff. So maybe he is like going around with an extinguisher. I don't know, but go ahead.
I don't think it's that kind of fire, but fires of, hey, I've got this problem, hey, I've got that problem, I need this fixed right away, and all this kind of stuff. And I've been in that situation before. So, and I think probably Jason, you have too. Sometimes you get in that situation where all you're doing is swatting mosquitoes, trying to keep yourself from getting bitten too bad. But in his defense, I think that if he can get organized and we can get these things set up in a orderly manner. I think his job, and quite honestly, I think he probably needs some helpers. He had a helper, and the guy left for another job, and then all of a sudden the hiring freeze went on, and so he's stuck by himself now. And I know that for a city the size of Marion to have one IT person, he's got to be jumping.
I'm
So,
sure
Ralph,
he's pretty
let me
busy.
ask you this then, since you gave a defense of Jacob, do you also defend him in his statement that there weren't any issues with New World?
Well, I think you have to go back to the facts, okay? And the facts say there were problems. Now, if he's saying there were no problems, maybe he wasn't aware of any problems because maybe he wasn't involved
Then he should have said that. He should have said, I don't have any experience with New World because I'm used to changing light bulbs and installing security cameras or whatever the hell he's doing. And not go up there and say, oh, there's no issues. There's no issue. That, again, you lost all credibility in my book that day that you went up there in front of council and said that there was no issues with New World.
Right.
And he was hired by the Schertzer administration in 2014. So you want to talk about all these problems that are well documented within the
Right.
system. And this guy was the head of IT for the entire time. And then he gets up and he says that there's no issues with New World. To me, you have no credibility. None. And
We know he was
continues to be
involved.
employed.
We know he was involved and had elevated permissions in New World would be appropriate for IT. So
Right.
if he had elevated permissions in a system, either he didn't have any business need because he doesn't have the expertise, which is a whole different subject, or he allowed it to go on, or he just didn't look close enough. And that's his job. When you have admin access in these systems that deal with millions and millions of dollars in money, it is your responsibility to keep track of who has access at what level they have access, make sure that passwords are being enforced, security is being enforced. It's part of the job. I think organization is a big thing. You did bring that up, the trouble ticketing system, helping him prioritize things. He
Right.
may need help. We've had Bobby on here a couple of times. She worked with me when I was a singular IT person in a contact center with nearly 1,000 employees by myself. So I know it can be done. And I also worked on other projects around the country and overseas, remotely. So I know it can be done. I don't know his credentials per se, but there's a lot of huge red flags dating back to, before he was hired, but after he was hired, that would a regular, qualified system administrator would look at these problems as symptoms to other bigger problems and begin to dig deeper. And if they don't, you got to start asking some questions.
I know we discussed yesterday the ticketing problem, and Jacob told me that he had attempted to establish a ticketing system before, got no cooperation, and so I informed him. I said, "Well, we've got a city ordinance now that gives you the authority to establish that, and so all you do is you say, I have to have a trouble ticket from you, and until I get that ticket, I cannot do anything. And if you have a problem with that, City Ordinance 2025-122 says that I have to have that ticket."
So
And
we could talk about that later, but that's an interesting statement you just made, that he didn't get any cooperation. We'll have to touch base on that later, Ralph.
Yeah, and last topic here tonight, folks. We're kind of burning the midnight oil here on the Watchmen's Report. But big news of the week was, and we've already mentioned it here, Miranda McGinnis is out. He's resigned, thrown in the towel as Marion City Auditor. Ralph, what were your thoughts? Were you relieved, celebrating? Were you what reaction did it get from Ralph Smith when you heard the news?
well, I was kind of relieved, not for myself, because either way, my position stays the same. But I was kind of relieved for Miranda because the only alternative to her resigning would be to go to court, and a drawn out process that would bring out things that probably she didn't want to be brought out. And there's no need to have to sit in court and testify that this is what happened, that what happened, and then bring out the facts and show all that stuff in a courtroom full of people. I think this solved a lot of the problems and a lot of situation that she didn't really need to go through.
She was a glutton for punishment sometimes, I think, Ralph. Like, I didn't get it. I'm like, years ago, just resign, be done, go away, And
on a human level, I think everybody probably would agree on a human level. I like to think people aren't out, doing things in a nefarious way. It was probably very scary when you're sitting in the seat, whether it's Jacob or the auditor going, this is imploding. I'm the face of this. And I'm thinking about what you just said about Jacob, and Ralph, to your point. You know what? I was raised by a Southern grandmother, and you know what she would call that? When you get real nervous because everything's imploding and you're just standing right there watching it all happen. It's called, he was probably having to sugarcoat a murder there, right? Because, to come out and admit publicly that this is all wrong. It's been going on for years. We're millions of dollars in the hole. And there's all these people that either turned a blind eye or were a part of it. I'm not sure. It probably was a very, very scary thing. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay. And thankfully, everybody around the table with their all hands on deck now is committed to making sure that history does not repeat itself. Right. And we will make Marion great again, if I can say that.
Get the right initials anyway.
Right. Yeah, so McGinnis is gone. Now we're back to the interim auditor, acting auditor, who is deputy auditor, Martin Watts. Martin always finds a way to survive. He's like a Twinkie in a nuclear holocaust, or like a cockroach or something. You can never kill him. Like, it could be the end of days, and Martin Watts will somehow find his way back into the auditor's seat, if nothing else for a short period of time. So how long is Martin going to hold that position, Ralph? I mean, do you guys I've heard rumors that there's not one, not two, but possibly three potential auditors for the city of Marion. Have you guys made any progress on that?
I have not heard any scuttlebutt, any type of thing as to who might be in the running to be the auditor. So I really can't answer that. That's up to the mayor, and I probably won't know until you know.
Do we have a target? Is this like a 30-day process, 60-day process, 90-day process? Like, what's the ETA?
I have no knowledge of a timeline other than the fact that I know that the mayor wants to get the position filled, but he wants a qualified person in that position. He doesn't want to just fill the spot. He named Martin as the interim auditor until he can name somebody as a permanent auditor. As far as the mayor is concerned, that could be Martin. It could be somebody else. I don't know. But that's his decision to make. And all I can do is hope that he makes the right decision and we get these problems behind us.
Does Martin want to be up for consideration to hold that for the duration of the unexpired term?
I have not talked to him about that, but I would assume yes. I would assume he would want that job.
And I wouldn't touch that job with a 60-foot pole, Ralph.
No, me either. But I'm assuming that since he accepted the interim auditor's appointment, that he would accept the permanent.
Another glutton for punishment, folks. I don't know. But when you talk about qualified folks, there's only literally like a couple in the city of Marion. If you want to look at accounting, like if you anybody with like a background, licensed CPA, even retired CPA, I've looked up that information. Not a whole lot to work with. So that's what you're dealing with when you have a statutory form of government. If you had a charter, you could have a much larger pool of potential candidates. You could hire somebody that lived out in the county or lived outside of the county that had relevant work experience, job history, education. Under the statutory form of government, you don't. You're literally stuck with the people that you have that live and are registered to vote in the city of Marion. That's all you got to work with. And
Right.
again, I don't have, but it's something like 9. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I
7.
searched it. I literally went
7.
through
7 CPA.
every single licensed individual who lives in the city of Marion, and that's what you're left with. So, are we going to get somebody like that? Probably not. I mean, to be honest, statistically, no, you're not. You're probably going to be stuck with somebody that has some modicum of finance experience. It could just be somebody that worked a register at Walmart. Maybe that's what they're going to do. They're going to go to Walmart and say, "Hey, you rung up my Twinkies here. Like, you want to be auditor? You want to be auditor?
Speaking of a charter, though, Ralph, is there a desire to put something back on the ballot so that at minimum what we're discussing, being able to hire outside of the city, a charter pass and be put back on the ballot so that we can deal with the financials, seats like this in a different way? Is that something that council is considering?
Well, I don't know if council was considering it or not, but I know I'm the chair of the Legislation and Codes Committee, and I plan on introducing that legislation this year to try to get it on the November ballot again, with better education of the public, because I really think that a lot of the public doesn't really understand what this, what ballot they voted on last November. They thought they were voting on a charter, but they weren't. They were voting if we wanted to explore the option of getting a charter. All you're doing is voting for, do we want to form a charter? And if you vote yes, then a commission, 15 people, are going to write that charter,
right,
and present it to the voters next election to let them vote on it and decide, do we really want this or not? So they get 2 chances to say no or yes. And they get 1 chance to say no, I suppose, and 2 chances to say yes.
What were the numbers on that again, Ralph? I can't remember now when it was on the ballot last time.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
What were the final numbers on the ballot for the charter last time? Do you?
I think it was voted down by about 2,000 votes.
Percentage-wise, though, do you remember?
It was about 60-40, I think, something like that.
I think it wasn't even that bad, Ralph. I think it did a little bit better.
I thought it was in the 50s. I thought.
Yeah, it was. I'm pretty sure it was in the 50s, but
for
a lack of
59.9
awareness, it wasn't. It didn't fare poorly. It really, really didn't. When you broke it down, there wasn't the campaign. And my suggestion, Ralph, if that's going to be something that you pursue, because I ran the charter information page during that, so I did a whole bunch of articles and research on charters and pros and cons and that sort of thing. It needs to be done like in 53. There needs to be a recruited group of charter commission candidates. Not to say that additional people couldn't file to run, but there needs to be, these are our charter private group private group of charter commission, committee, and it needs to be split out amongst the wards. There needs to be 0 currently serving politicians or city workers. I know it's going to be hard to do.
It's impossible to do. I've already investigated that, and we cannot deny an administration person or a council person the opportunity to serve on that commission. And the biggest complaint that I heard on the commission last time was, hey, it's overloaded with city administration people and 6th Ward people. And my only response to that is get more people from the other wards to run. I don't care if we have 50 people on that ballot. We're only going to elect 15. And we're going to pick the 15 that we think are going to do the best job. And that means a cross section of the community, because every segment of this community must be represented on that commission. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So,
it would be really lovely if we could see, just like you see the citizens-driven property tax issue right now. You see that happening. That is that's driven by citizens, not governments. And it would be awfully nice to see people who are paying attention and watching going, you know what? I'd like to help write the Constitution for my own city.
Yeah.
And the citizens take up the mantle, and they be the ones to drive the charter and understand that they will be the John Hancock at the table, if you will, writing the document that helps to build the city from the ground up, not just accepting the statute, right? From the top down, so that they feel empowered and it's done their way. I think if council obviously would have to put it on the ballot, but man, it would be awfully nice if we saw some citizens getting involved in driving that forward. Because I mean, I'm pro charter. If you have the opportunity to write your own governing documents at the local level, who doesn't want that? I mean, we're fighting centralized government all the time. The time. This is a wonderful opportunity. So, anyone who's listening, if you'd like to see things change, get involved, take up the mantle and drive that forward, write your own documents. I think I saw Ralph post once, what was it? Marion, charter your future, right? Yes.
Well, I think I have to owe that to you.
You branded it and it was wonderful. And, I would encourage our residents to take up that mantle and drive that forward. I think that our residents are astute and can do it and would do a good job. We just need, people with the drive to help build the city.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to say something about it, because I plan on introducing that. But if a person or a group of citizens of Marion City would love to get involved in that, get involved in circulating petitions or whatever, to get that on the ordinance. We cannot pass the ordinance before July 6th in order to meet the timetables. So it has to be after July 6th before we can pass that ordinance. But if between now and then, I would love it if a group of citizens decided they wanted to push this effort to get the city, get that question on the ballot for this year, and then we can proceed from there. Just bring it to council, present it to council, and say, we want this, we want an ordinance to get this on the ballot, and here's our signatures. You don't have to have a certain number of signatures. We just need a group of people that show interest, and we can go from there. Once we get the ordinance passed, then we can go ahead and start publishing or letting people get their petitions, and do it just like we did last time. Only this time, what I would like to make sure that happens is that we have lots of opportunities for people to get educated on what a charter is and the benefits of a charter over a statutory city. And to do that, we need people from charter cities to come to Marion and hold town halls and explain this is the way our charter city works. And I plan on doing that. If we can get citizens involved, I'd love that.
I'll help find some people from charter cities to come speak.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Because you know what, like you said, Ralph, at the end of the day, people can sit on the sidelines and people either become obstinate and they're like, I'm tired of hearing this, nothing ever changes, it never goes our way anyway, or I don't trust those people, or the finger point, or you can drive it and you can make it be what you want it to be. And I think that's there's a lot of opportunity. And I watch the comments and what people in Marion are saying on all kinds of topics. There's a lot of passionate, brilliant people in Marion. So we'll just have to continue to encourage the public, and I'll help with those town halls and getting those charter folks in the room to help explain.
Right. And we've got a lot of talented people in Marion with a lot of organizational ability that can put together a citizen-led coalition to bring a charter to Marion. I'd much rather see it done that way than have council sponsor it.
Absolutely.
That's what needs, and again, can look back at 1953. That's what they did. You can run, and back in 53, they could have had additional people run. They didn't. They went around, they collected signatures, they got petitions, they spread, had different informational programs leading up to it, and they recruited non-government workers, 2 from each ward, and tried to split it by party. And that's what they said, this is our endorsed committee of 15. Didn't mean that other people couldn't run. It's the same thing if we did it that way this time. You can't prevent somebody from running.
Exactly.
But there needs to be a group at the middle that is recruiting people. And then not only that, they need, just like they did back in 53, they need to put together a platform or a template for what this group of 15 that we have endorsed. We've recruited them, we've endorsed them. This is what they want the charter to contain. Because that was the other problem. We didn't know. We had these people, 21 or whatever that it was, I forget. I was
15
neck deep in that issue at the time, but you had all these people and nobody knew. Most of them were current city workers, and you didn't know what the hell that they were what they wanted. And then, I sent off different candidate questionnaires trying to get an idea as far as some of the big picture, like what their thoughts were on forms of government, whether it's city manager, whether it's, what have you. Some responded, some didn't. And it needs to be done better. It needs to be better organized. I think that we need to get that group. This is your group that we have officially endorsed. Doesn't mean you can't have some other jackass that throws his name in the hat as well. But they need to have a set. This is what we want to accomplish. These are what we want to see the major changes. And then when you do your town halls and your informational gatherings and stuff, you can say, this is what we're committed to going for. Every single person of this 15 member group has endorsed this idea and is committed to executing it if they're voted in. I think if you did that, and you also put the reasons why the changes are needed, just like how you have nobody basically to backfill the law director currently, you have nobody that's really qualified, very few people that are qualified to fill the auditor's position. It would be a persuasive argument, but you have to let people know, like, this is what we're going after, because you didn't have that. You didn't have it. And I tried my best. I mean, I was putting all kind of content out there, and one of the only people in the community that was doing so. from an informational standpoint. But as far as it goes, it's the number one thing that needs to be done in the short term to put the city in long-term sustainable success position.
Well, I
So-
think Ralph was really, you hit the nail on the head with the confusion, because I don't think people understood it was a two-phase process. It's pick the people and approve or disapprove of the paper, right? And people thought it was one swoop, and we can't put the cart before the horse, because you gotta put the people you trust there first, and people need to understand right now you're picking the people you trust, and then do you trust them to write a document? And even if you do, you can still tell them no. People didn't know that. People didn't understand it. So you hit the nail on the head. Whoops, my computer fell. So anyway, I look forward to helping if you need me.
Arthur, yeah, probably need you, without a doubt.
Good deal.
All right, we've gone pretty late. Ralph, I'll give you the last words, and then we'll give Wezlynn some last words. And then we're closing this episode because we've been going for like 2 hours.
Yeah,
So
been
go
a
ahead.
long one, hasn't it? Yeah.
It has. Go ahead, Ralph.
Well, I just want to emphasize again that I am a representative for the people of the Third Ward, also people of the city of Marion. Third Ward first, Marion second. But the only way I can serve you is to hear from you. I need to know what you want. I've had a couple of calls this week from people. As a matter of fact, the PUCO thing with the water company rate increase was going on tonight. A lady called me. She couldn't make it, but she wanted to voice her opinion. So she told me what she wanted me to say. I wrote that down and sent it to the PUCO, and I know that it was read at that meeting. So, that's the kind of stuff we need to make sure of, is that if you have something that's concerning you and you think I can help, give me a call and I will do my best to get that resolved.
He's very responsive, folks, and reach out to him, whatever the issue, he'll do his best for you. And that's the basis of representative government. So make sure you take advantage of it and you do your part to participate. Wezlynn, closing comments.
Well, I think that why Ralph and I get along so well is because we govern a lot alike. I'm here for people. I love policy, but I can't help policy unless I know what you want. And I am here to listen, actively creating a policy list that I plan to take to the State House, voice right out of our district. I plan to build a kitchen cabinet of people within this district. That's not just our elected officers like Ralph, who I enjoy speaking with and collaborating with already, but it's our voters too. And I'm like Ralph, I'm very easily, you can get a hold of me very easily, I would say, and I'm very responsive. I'm a no fluff kind of girl. I kind of like the behind the scenes work and combing through the fine print and hammering out problems, finding solutions. And so I just really look forward to being a boots on the ground person, working in the district hand in hand with all of you. That's where I want to be. Columbus is fine and everything, but that's not where I want to be. I want to be in district, working with you guys and taking my marching orders to Columbus. And I think it's going to be a really good thing. I think we're going to have a lot of great success together. So I'm just happy to be here, and I see you all as my partners, and looking forward to our next time on the Watchmen. And Ralph, I'll see you soon, I'm sure. We'll pull, we're going to rope in Senate Majority Whip George Lang and help us hammer out some of these problems.
Awesome. That's great. Can I say something real quick? I just wanted to mention that Wezlynn, because in my dealings with her, she has been very responsive. She's come up with some great ideas for this city. Even though we haven't implemented some of them, they're in consideration, and they're good ideas. I think that Wezlynn would be the person to be the 86th district representative, and we would see a lot of benefit from her getting elected. So I've endorsed her, and I'm taking this opportunity to endorse her again. So
Thank you,
please
Paul.
vote for Wezlynn.
That means the world to me. Thank you for your trust and your endorsement.
That's quite an endorsement.
It
So
is.
thank you,
I'm
Ralph
honored.
Smith, councilman representing the 3rd Ward, and also Wezlynn Davis, the Republican candidate for state rep of the 86th district. It was an exciting, long night here on the Watchmen's Report, but there's so much stuff. There's so much content. We got content coming out of our ears here, folks. Like,
Yeah.
just not enough time to cover everything. So,
Well, before you leave,
yeah,
he made a loud beep or something to wake the people up that were watching. Okay.
no, everybody was waiting on bated breath.
Yeah.
They were just, they were just waiting, and they love it. They love it, Ralph. So, Marion has its fair share of political junkies and news junkies, and that's why we have such a following. So, don't miss our next episode, folks. Tomorrow night, same bat time, same bat channel. We have Twyla Lang, the finance chairwoman, and also representative on council from the 4th Ward. So we're going to rehash a lot of this stuff that we hashed with tonight with Ralph, but again, it's that important. We're going to go into more detail, I think, probably cover a few other things. So be sure to tune in tomorrow night for our show with Twyla Lang. And coming up, I think the following week, we haven't made the official announcement here. We're having Heather Hill, who is a conservative running for governor of Ohio. So that'll be 2. We had Casey Putsch, going to get Heather Hill on there. And we're waiting to hear back, allegedly, from Vivek Ramaswamy. We'll see if he will be willing to come on with a couple Heritage Americans here on the Watchmen's Report. But the invitation's out there. You're welcome, Vivek. We would love to have you on here. Like I said, just a couple of Heritage Americans trying to do Heritage American things on the Watchmen's Report. So you're welcome to come on here. So anyway, until next time, folks. This has been the Watchmen's Report. So again, for Jason Foreman, Ralph Smith, Wezlynn Davis, I'm Cody Higley. And remember, a watchman is always vigilant. Have a good night.
Have a
Good
good
night,
night. Thank
You
you.
Marianne.
too. Good night.
Good night.
Sound the alarm! To arms! They are here!